Hi guys, and welcome to another video, and this video is going to be about restraints or handcuffs. And it's an interesting one, I think, when it comes to security dog handling. It's an interesting one when it comes to security as a whole, really, but I think in terms of security dog handling, it is quite interesting. And the reason that I'm making this video is that the other day I was just going through Facebook and NASDO put out a post, and on that post it was like a question. So the question was, what are NASDO's thoughts on the use of mechanical restraints, handcuffs by general purpose handlers? So GP handlers, that is your normal German Shepherds, Malinois, them kind of handlers. Their answer was, restraints should not be used by handlers, and NASDO does not endorse their use. A safe distance must be maintained between the dog and a person, and applying restraints to a person will compromise the safety distance. The handler should instead rely upon their dog to protect them as it is trained to do so, detaining a person in place until assistance by security colleagues or a police response arrives. Now that is quite interesting because it's something that I was taught by my trainer Terry when I first got into this, and I think there's more to it as well, because I think that restraints and handcuffs do have a place within security. I think possibly not in terms of the GP side, but in terms of security it does. So I can understand, because we are security operatives first and dog handlers second, I can understand why some people would like to go down that training and have that ability or that training in order to do it. But I think when it comes to security dog handling, it's an interesting one. And the reason that it's an interesting one is that obviously we have a dog that is there to protect us. That dog is there to hopefully detain a person into a certain area, but the main reason for the dog is to obviously stop us getting injured. And when it comes to you wanting to put restraints on people or whatever, it's obviously going to be from someone that you feel is going to be violent or someone that is possibly going to cause you harm. So you would think actually it's a good idea to be trained in restraints or handcuffs in order to be able to do that. But when it comes to that, how are you going to do that? Because so we're always taught, so you've got your lead, the dog, and then you want like another length of the dog before you get to the person. So how are you going to get close enough to that person to be able to handcuff them? Because it's unlikely that someone's going to want to have restraints or handcuffs put on them. So you are going to have to get quite close, personal and hands-on in order to do that. Now, what are you going to do with that dog? Now, a lot of people will say, oh, I'll just down my dog and then I'll walk up to them and I'll restrain them or put restraints or handcuffs on them. In practice, that might be how it works. But in real life, is that likely to be the case? Probably not. But people will say, well, I'll just down my dog and then I'll go and deal with that. Well, that's all well and good, because by the law, you have to have control of the dog. Now, if the dog's in a down and you go up to search someone or you go up to put restraints on them, as long as that dog doesn't walk up and bite that person or that dog doesn't come up and threaten that person, you can argue that that dog is then in control. But what happens if you go up to put restraints on that person and someone else walks around the corner and the dog goes over and deals with that person? Is the dog then under control? The dog might understand the situation of, right, dad's dealing with this person, but hold on, who's this? I've not seen this person. Then the dog could possibly be out of control. So what's your other option? Well, you put the dog in the van or you tie the dog up. Now, again, you're parting yourself from your dog and making it impossible for the dog in order to protect you. If you've tied your dog up or you've put it back in the van, you've taken away the dog from being able to protect you. Well, what happens if you go up to restrain that person, put handcuffs on that person, and someone walks around the corner and now there's 2 or 3 of them against you and you can't get back to your dog? So it's an interesting one in terms of the dog, and I understand why NASDO say that you should just use your dog to detain that person and keep yourself safe, and not not try to restrain someone with restraints or handcuffs, etc. So it is an interesting one. I can understand why people do it, but in terms of security dog handling, it's not something you're really going to use, because in order to be able to restrain or put handcuffs on someone, that means that you're going to have to part yourself from your dog, your protector or your second what's the best way of putting it? Your enhanced protection. You're going to have to part yourself from that in order to go hands-on with someone that is probably not going to want to be restrained or handcuffed. Also, with using handcuffs and restraints and things like that, you open yourself up to a whole number of different things that can happen. You could get done for false imprisonment, false arrest, unlawful restraint, and you can end up getting sued. You can end up having charges against you, because unless you know the law to the exact wording, there's a chance that you might go the wrong side of the line in order to put them restraints on, in order to put them handcuffs on. And you may only have someone in handcuffs for 3 minutes, but 30 seconds in that 3 minutes, you might have done something wrong. Then all of a sudden, you can now be criminally charged. You might have to be sued and pay out compensation and different things like that. And it's an interesting one just to think about, because like I say, I've seen handlers with handcuffs and restraints, and I always just think to myself, well, how are you going to use them whilst you've still got the dog, and what is the purpose of you using them? I did also hear of someone that if you arrest someone in terms of handcuffs, restraints, if you arrest someone, then the police turn up, they then have to de-arrest that person from you and then arrest them themselves, and then you're more likely having to go down to the police station in order to give a report on different things, rather than being able to do it on the side. My kind of theory around it is, look, I understand that restraints are good in terms of security. Maybe if you're a static guard that is helping a dog handler, then obviously it's much easier, because the dog handler can keep you both safe. But as a static guard, you would be able to use restraints and handcuffs, etc. So I can understand it when it comes to using that sort of stuff. As a security dog handler myself, would I ever put myself in the position of having handcuffs or restraints? No, because my idea is that I just need to keep myself protected, try and detain the person in that area. If they decide that they don't want to be detained in that area, there's no point in me making the issue a lot worse. The police can do their investigations. The police can catch them at a later date. There's no point in me putting myself in a position where there's a chance I could be sued, I could be charged. There's no point in me putting myself in a position where I'm having to separate myself from my dog in order to do that, because that makes no sense. The reason that you're restraining someone or putting someone in handcuffs is potentially because you think they're going to be violent. Well, what's the point in me separating myself from the thing that's meant to be keeping me safe from someone like that? So I think it's just something just to think about. Like I say, that post was put up by Nasdu the other day, and I just thought actually it's quite an interesting thing, because a lot of people, when they get into this, they may think, oh, I want to have restraints or handcuffs so that if someone comes on my site and I can detain them in an area, I could handcuff them so that they can't run off or they can't cause me any damage. But when you think about it practically in terms of security dog handling, in order to do that, you have to separate yourself from the dog, or you have to separate yourself in terms of taking the lead off and putting the dog in the down. If the dog then decides that he sees someone else and he wants to go and do that, unless you've obviously got a very good emergency stop, that dog could then be out of control, and you just open yourself up to another can of worms. So I'll be interested to see what your thoughts on restraints and handcuffs are. Me personally, I won't do it because I just don't see the benefit, and I don't see any plus side from a dog handler having restraints or handcuffs. There probably are. There may be people in the comments that think that there are. So I'll be interested to see what your thoughts are down in the comment section. If you like this video, make sure we give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below for loads more videos. Like I say, I will be interested to see what people say about this. Also, in the description of this video is also my Patreon. If you like what I do and want to help support me carry on doing this, then it's there. From £3 a month, you can really help me out. But other than that, that's my kind of thoughts on restraints. I think it's an interesting one. I do see how they have a place in security, but in terms of security dog handlers, I don't see the point, because I'm not going to separate me from my dog in a potential violent situation in order to try and handcuff someone. It makes no sense to me. But other than that, I'll see you again next week. Just watching. See you later. Bye.